Good morning again, everyone. It's good to see you. And, I picked that slide of that person being tossed up in the air, feeling like, that's the hope and the feeling that we have when we've accomplished something pretty big. And that's happened here at Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater, having just gone through an amazing stewardship drive. And when I think about that, I think of the joy and the trust that goes into such a time. But I have to share with you, there's a story. Of course, I want to start with a story. I like it, and it's an old story. It's about, the guy who went to worship with his family. And as they were driving home afterwards, he was complaining about everything about the service. He says, the music was too loud, the sermon was too long, the announcements were unclear, the building was hot, the people weren't all that friendly, and he went on and on complaining and complaining about everything with that service. And then finally, his very observant son said, well, Dad, you've got to admit, it wasn't a bad show for just $1. Today is a day to be grateful. It's a day in which we take time to really celebrate and to acknowledge what an amazing accomplishment you all have just gone through. A very successful showing of your commitment to what you're all about as Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. There are certain sermons that have remained with me over the years that have helped to guide me in my own life and in my own giving. And one of those is a sermon from the Reverend Don Shelby. He's a pastor in Santa Monica, California. And he writes that, we will not be measured by our intellect or our knowledge, important though they may be. And we will not be measured by our possessions, our professional achievements, our social status, or leadership and standing in the community, no matter how significant they may be. We will not be measured by our religion, nor our beliefs, no matter how mature and informed they may be. We will not be measured by the social causes we have championed or the struggles for the human good we have engaged, no matter how pivotal they have been. No, he says, we will be measured by the love that we have given out in simple ways, in the caring concern we show the next person we meet, in the gestures of kindness and goodness that we offer. We will be measured by how reachable we are, by how much pain we ease, by how much loneliness we dispel, by how many burdens we share, by how much joy that we create for others. It's that kind of giving that lies at the heart of what I understand is the way we go about trusting in our lives. You all have just come through a very engaging stewardship drive, a successful one indeed. And as I reflect upon Reverend Shelby's words, I want to frame that success as your willingness to trust, even through disagreements and hardships like pandemics. I've met a good number of folks in my years, both in pastoral ministry as well as within the spheres of corporations, nonprofits, and government. And I have to tell you, some of those folks in those arenas have bank accounts with a heck of a lot more money in them than the total budget of this congregation. I met such a man once when I was pastor on the North Shores of Lake Tahoe in California. I wasn't, but in probably the second or third week of pastoring that church as a new appointment. And when the head of their board of trustees came to me and said, Pastor, I need to show you something. I said, sure. So he walks me over to the outside of the church. And he points to the foundation of the church. And then up on the roof, he said, Pastor, if we don't get a new roof and a new foundation to this church before winter, this church will not survive. The snowpack will be too heavy and it will collapse. You can see light through when you're underneath the roof in that church. So welcome to my new congregation. So I shared that with a colleague of mine who then went and introduced me to a gentleman he knew that was building a beautiful home right on the shores of Lake Tahoe in Incline Village. And he said, I want you to go talk to this gentleman, Dave. I said, okay. So I went to where his house was being built, and he was up on the very top of his roof of his house. It was a beautiful slate roof. Gentleman had quite a bit of money. And he said, come on up, Reverend. And so I climbed a ladder up 3 stories, and I sat with him on the pinnacle of this slated roof overlooking Lake Tahoe. And he said, what can I do for you? I said, and I just told him what I just told you. And what he ended up doing was a month later, before the snows fell, put in a brand new foundation and a brand new metal roof on that church. You see, he didn't ask from me any detailed analysis of that congregation's viability or of its sustainability or even its mission statement. No, he simply wanted to offer some goodness and some joy to this young minister who came with hat in hand for the welfare of a small group of worshipers. He trusted that his giving would somehow matter. You know, how we give, not so much the amount we give, is a measurement of our willingness to trust. And so I've asked Bill Norsworthy and Sally Otto to be a part of this morning's message. As pivotal leaders in your stewardship drive, I wondered how their experience with you all in that drive informed them about the trust level you all have for one another. So I want to ask them, Bill and Sally, what did you learn?
Good morning. I have learned that at UUC, we join together to take care of each other, to take the personal responsibility of stewardship, to put others before ourselves. Stewardship at UUC is part of our spiritual journey, our relationship to each other, our covenant to each other, our trust in how we will treat each other. We pledge to show our trust in our congregation and our governing body now and in the future. Additionally, it is the promise of our pledge that affects all we do within our community and outside of our community. Our pledge is for the operating budget, salaries, buildings, programs. This is the way we share our abundance and give back. What you give matters, not whether it's small or large. It matters. We are grateful for every pledge, which above all shows your trust in our congregation now and into our future. Having a successful campaign this year has shown your commitment, your trust, and your love of UUC, your willingness to look forward and to continue onward. Thank you.
And Bill, what is it that you learned?
Well, thank you, Dave, for inviting our participation in today's service. This year's stewardship campaign shows us that our congregation is surviving the ongoing pandemic quite well. Most of our members are retired, and have not had to deal with the crisis of job loss and the financial struggle that creates. But we do have members who have had COVID, and some are still dealing with its consequences. However, we have lost members this year to death and relocation, and believe it or not, to technology challenges and even governance issues. This has been a difficult year, but our mission, our members remain as committed as ever to this community and to our mission of social justice, and they have been very generous with their pledges. As most of you know, we have exceeded this year's goal of $235,000. So thank you to all of you who have committed to supporting UUC for the coming year, and a special thank you to our stewardship team and to all of our visiting stewards. Thank you all.
Yes, and thank you to both of you. So, our giving, does teach us something about our willingness to trust, but there is a second lesson that I've learned in the way we give. We learn that in our giving, what it is that we truly actually value. And it is that which ultimately is the joy that sustains us through our disagreements. And yes, through pandemics. I try to value people more than I do my positions. And like you, I'm sure I go through cycles of downsizing. And some days I'm abhorred by all the possessions that I own, even though I'm now living in a space of 745 square feet. But is having no possessions the answer? Sometimes I wonder, but I don't think it is. I don't think that is the answer. But I do believe the key is not to become possessed by one's possessions. Who we are is so much more important than what we have. And it seems to me that the more my giving is born out of my love, rather than out of my desire to have, that's when joy, real joy, enters my life. There's the story, of Mother Teresa while she was visiting Australia. A new recruit to the monastery she was visiting was assigned to be her guide and gopher for her stay. And the young man was so thrilled and excited at the prospect of me being so close to this woman. He dreamed of how much he would learn from her and what they would talk about. But during her visit, he became frustrated. Because although he was constantly near her, he never had the opportunity to say one word to Mother Teresa. There were always other people for her to meet. But finally, her tour was over, and she was due to fly to New Guinea. And in desperation, the young friar had his opportunity to speak to her. And he said to her, "If I pay my own way, my own fare to New Guinea, can I sit next to you on the plane so I can talk to you and learn from you?" And Mother Teresa looked at him. She asked, "You have enough money to pay airfare to New Guinea?" He says, "Oh, yes," he replied eagerly. And then she replied, "Then give that money to the poor. You'll learn more from that than anything I can tell you." The problem was the young man wanted to experience a feeling when he needed to simply learn by doing. Sadiq Ahmed makes this plea. He says, take me to the place where humanity is more respected than money. Now, there are days when we echo Sadiq's plea. We wonder if such a place even exists in the midst of a world, a country that is bent on consumerism, that devalues those who are not in possession of wealth and the goods that wealth brings. Those single folks in our country who live below the poverty line in this country of $12,880, or a family of four trying to make it on an income of $26,500 a year, or those indigenous people of our country who make up 25% of those living in poverty in this country, blacks at 21%, Hispanics at 18%, white and Asian at 10%, and children at 16%. Take me to the place where humanity is more respected than money. And yet, I hear those words of long ago that echo Mother Teresa's simple teaching of doing that she shared to that young man, those words that call me back to that joy that claims me is where and to whom I give. Where your treasure is so there will your heart be. Where your treasure is, so there will your heart be. That's the place where humanity is more respected than money. It's in where our hearts lie. So Bill and Sally, in the conversations you and the stewards have had over the past few weeks, as people looked into their giving, what have you learned in where people's treasure lie, where their hearts lie here at UUC? Sally?
Where our hearts lie, there is our treasure. According to Herb Miller, a UUA congregational effectiveness and planning person, one of the principles of generosity is strong financial stewardship, which leads to heightened morale and feelings of satisfaction among congregants. We give to what we value. When we see a need, we value addressing it. I'd like to read you this short story. This is from the Ayat Jamila, Beautiful Signs, a treasury of Islamic wisdom for children and parents, and it's read with the permission of Skinner House. Kanya Makan, there was and there was not, the Arabic version of Once Upon a Time. There was and there was not a man known far and wide for his generosity. One day, sitting with his friends, sipping coffee in the village square, a poor woman approached him with a small request for money to feed her child. Of course, he replied, and without hesitation, plucked coin after coin out of his pocket, piling them into the woman's hand until they spilled on the ground. Overwhelmed with the show of kindness, the woman began to weep. She bowed her head in gratitude. May Allah bless you, sir. You have saved my child's life. She carefully placed the coins in a small cloth sack. Glancing up at last, she thanked him with a frail half smile. When she was out of sight, the man's friends probed him with questions. Why did you give her so much money? Asked one. That was foolish. Don't you think that all her friends will be at your door? Said another. Just yesterday, you gave your zakat, your charity, said a third. You weren't obliged to give her any. Why did you do it? The generous man kept silent until their indignation ran its course. At last, they quieted down. While such a poor woman may be pleased with just a little money from me, said the generous man, I couldn't have been. He looked from friend to friend. Unless I give her what I am able to, I won't be happy. She may not know me, but I know myself. And the group of men, thoughtful and contrite, said no more about it. Where we place our treasure is where our heart lies. We prove what is most valuable to us. Thank you to each of you for proving where your heart lies and what you value most.
And Bill, what did you learn?
In many ways, this is the peak of our congregation's year. This is the one time each year that we formally commit ourselves to the future of our shared enterprise. the Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. Our UU tradition calls us to acknowledge the importance of our spiritual home by pledging to support our mission and values into an unknown future. We do this because we choose to do so. We make that decision because we trust the collective wisdom of our village. We depend on each other. We are inspired by each other. We help each other. And that is what it means to be part of this beloved community. Trust is the key to our hearts. And without trust, we lose the essence of community. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want you to all see who all have put their trust in helping all of us put our trust into Unitarian Universalists of Clearwater. I want you to see their names and know that we show this to you as a way for us to, not just today, but in the future, to express our gratitude to them for the time and effort they trusted to put in to having conversations with everyone in this congregation. So let's see who we want to give thanks to.
Through this last year, we have been struggling with many aspects of technology, and this is a perfect example of that. And so as a result of that, we have not been able to meet together, and we've not really been able to make those strong connections that we all love and adore, really, about our relationships with each other and with the congregation. So today, we are going to revisit the covenant that we made with each other about 6 weeks ago at the beginning of our campaign. And because of our technology, we're going to invite a few people to help us to be surrogates representing the rest of us. And so I'd like to invite Ann and Joe Myers, who have been very diligent stewards this year and have done a great job with that. And also Steffi Robbins and Sid Parham, celebrating Sid's birthday. He's going to speak to us, he and Steffi, on behalf of the entire congregation in reciting the covenant that we developed and made the promises that we made a number of weeks ago. So let's revisit, and we'll do it in the past tense because we're done.
We came among you, committed to make our congregation's dreams come true. Those dreams became reality when we all committed and invested in supporting the mission and vision of our congregation for now and for the future.
We too committed to the mission and vision of this congregation. We understand that our investment is central to turning our hopes and dreams into reality, and we accepted that responsibility with joy.
we committed contacting each of you to set up a convenient time for our stewardship conversation. And we committed to being fully present in this virtual environment.
We made time in our busy lives to have a stewardship conversation. We prepared for the conversation by reflecting upon our relationship with UUC and engaging the visiting steward in honest and direct conversation.
We listened respectfully to your dreams and concerns and honored your privacy whenever it was requested.
We committed ourselves to generosity of spirit and made our financial pledge to the best of our ability.
And together
we enjoyed each other's company, respected
each other's
ideas,
perceptions, and beliefs.
And we had a
good time while raising money
to
help
us realize our dreams
for this future
of our spiritual home.
Well, thank you for reminding us of this stewardship covenant and how effective it was in helping us through this campaign. Thank you all.